This presentation, titled Food Traceability and the Challenges Ahead, comes to us from Dr. Ajay Shah and Dr. Vasambal Manikkam. Dr. Ajay Shah is a highly experienced food scientist, technologist trained in the UK. He holds impressive academic achievements and career highlights both in Australia and abroad. He is an accredited food safety auditor to several certification bodies, including Cosmetics, Good Manufacturing Practices, GMP, FAMI-QS, and Corporate Social Responsibility, CSR. He also holds the position of Technical Manager for ISO 22000-2018 and HACCP for one of the certification bodies. Dr. Vasambal Manikkam is an Australian qualified PhD in the field of food science and nutrition, whose passion is to break down the complex science behind food, nutrition, and health into lay terms to empower consumers, the food industry, and research organizations in achieving food safety and sustainable products. He is a member of the Nutrition Australia and the International Food Safety and Quality Network and has gained experience in good clinical practices, GCP, and ISO 9001. And with that, take it away, Ajay and Vasambal.
Thank you very much. Firstly, I would like to say, invite us a second year running to present this presentation. Both Vasambal and myself really enjoyed it last year, so I hope people enjoyed listening to us and got a lot of good information from that. Okay, I will now pass you over to the Vasambal for...
Oh, okay, thank you so much again for this opportunity to present. And today, as we say, our topic is food traceability, and we will cover what really is food traceability, its challenges, and finally, the solutions to an improved food traceability system within a few industries, such as the fish industry, the dairy industry. And now I'll pass on to Ajay to talk about So what really is food traceability? Food traceability includes tracing and tracking. It has come to the fore largely due to the mad cow crisis, which happened in 1996 and showed deficiencies in monitoring food and feed in the EU, European Union. Since then, a sense of mistrust of consumers has been developed towards the quality and food safety. So the public, the food businesses, national and international regulators have become more aware of what are present in their food products. Hence, businesses have also become more aware of the supply chain issues, and therefore it is now mandatory to establish a robust food traceability system, which is one of the ways to maintain sustainability and transparency within the global food systems, to eliminate food fraud, and minimize the production and distribution of unsafe or poor quality food. So that's a little bit of an intro to food traceability. I will now pass on to Ajay to elaborate further on what is actually food traceability, what are the systems behind it.
Thank you, Vasambal. I just wanted to sort of talk about what is actually food traceability. Okay, traceability is the ability to track the forward movement of food products through the supply chain segments and the ability to trace back the history, application, and location of that product and raw ingredients. Now, according to FSANZ, which is Food Standards Australia and New Zealand, traceability is the ability to track any food through all stages of production, processing, and distribution. That includes importation and at retail. So traceability should mean that movements can be traced one step backwards and one step forward at any point in the supply chain. For food processing businesses, traceability should extend to being able to identify sources of all food inputs, such as you're looking at raw materials, looking at additives, other ingredients, as well as packaging. Now, one of the questions that people ask is, why is traceability important? Well, traceability enables corrective actions such as a product recall to be implemented quickly and effectively, especially when something goes wrong. When a potential food safety problem is identified, whether by a food business or a government agency, an effective traceability system can help isolate and prevent contaminated products from reaching consumers. Now, the other thing is traceability also allows food businesses to target the product or products affected by a food safety problem, minimizing disruption to trade and any potential public health risks. It is important for all food businesses, including retailers and importers, to be able to trace their products. I'm going to be talking a little bit about what are the characteristics of a traceability system. An effective traceability system basically relies on being able to track products one step forward and one step back, which I mentioned earlier on, and at any point in the supply chain. So the system of a food business has in place, so I beg your pardon, the system a food business has in place includes any procedures for identifying producers, suppliers, customers, and products, and the records kept, including, for example, one needs to know the name and address and the contact details of the suppliers and a description of the products or inputs supplied. Also, you need the name and addresses and contact details of the customers and a description of the product supplied to them, date of transaction or delivery. The fourth point is batch or lot identifications or other markings on the product. You also need to know volumes or quantity of product supplied or received, any other relevant production records. I'm going to be talking a little bit about European law. Under the European Union law, traceability means the ability to track any food, feed, food producing animal or substance that will be used for consumption through all stages of production, processing, and distribution. Again, why is traceability needed in EU? Well, traceability is a way of responding to potential risks that can arise in food and feed. When you talk about feed, you're talking about animal feeds, to ensure that all food products in the European Union are safe for the consumers. Later on, I'll be giving you a little bit of a case study of an example of a feed, how the Europeans managed to sort of capture that very quickly without getting to the consumers. It is vital that when national authorities or food businesses identify a risk, they can trace it back to its source in order to swiftly isolate the problem and prevent contaminated products from actually reaching consumers. In addition, traceability allows targeted withdrawals and the provisions of accurate information to the public, thereby you're minimizing the disruption to trade. The European Union's General Food Law actually entered into force in 2002 and makes traceability compulsory for all food and feed businesses. It requires that all food and feed operators implement special traceability systems. They must be able to identify where their products have come from and where they are going, and also to rapidly provide this information to the competent authorities. Furthermore, in addition to the general requirements, sector-specific legislation applies to certain categories of food products, such as fruits and vegetables, beef, fish, honey, as well as olive oil, so that consumers can identify their origin and authenticity. In the case of animals, producers must now tag every one with details of their origin, when animals are taken for slaughter, they can stamp them with traceability codes at the abattoir. The tools used can be ear tags, which you can find, some animals are tagged with ear tags on their ears. They call these passports, or they can have barcodes, and they may vary from country to country, but majority of them carry the same information. As long as the information is transferred, that's the main key thing. Now, in order to enable the traceability of animals across borders, in April 2004, the European Union introduced what is known as the Trade Control and Export System, better known as TRACES. Now, this particular system provides a central database for tracking the movement of animals both within the European Union and from other countries. International trade is an important part of the modern global economy, and in Northern Hemisphere, its roots actually go back to the Viking era. So production and distribution in this global economy have become much more complex. Today, much of the food that reaches the modern consumer's plate is actually sourced globally. So, a lot of the food that we consume actually travels along from different parts of the world. So production and distribution patterns today are much more complex than, let's say, some 30 years ago. And also the consumer's preferences have evolved to include specialist foods and foods out of season. Now, the US law is basically, you have to also include bioterrorism. That actually happened after the 9/11 scenario. So the Americans went into a phase where they said that everything has to be sort of zero threat. A lot of companies are now looking at threat assessments. So in a way, that's a global thing now. So now I just wanted to touch base on that case study on from the Europe. It was on dioxin contamination in potato peels. This actually was a case study from 2004. I'll tell you a little bit about the case study. So in autumn 2004, during standard random monitoring of dioxin levels in milk at a Dutch farm, national competent authorities found a high level of dioxin in the milk. They immediately barred the farm from trade and initiated the tracing of the product through the food chain. Now, this actually revealed that the source of contamination was actually clay, which is used in food processing to separate high quality potatoes from lower quality ones. The dioxin contaminated clay had contaminated potato peels, which is actually used for feeding animals. So they actually use this for feeding cows. The Rapid Alert System for Food and Feed, known as RASFF in Europe, was used to trigger the swift exchange of information between national authorities on the problem. It was quickly established that the clay had also been supplied to several food processing companies located in the Netherlands, Belgium, France, and Germany. Authorities swiftly identified these businesses and barred over 200 farms which had received the potentially contaminated potato peels from trading. Thanks to the traceability system, action was taken in time, and as a result, contaminated products never reached the consumers. Now, I also want to just touch base on food fraud. This is a big area at the moment. So food fraud is a very real problem problem, and it poses risks to companies and individuals. It's a global issue. What actually happens is food fraud occurs when there is a shortage of a product. So when there is a shortage of a particular niche product, which is a pricey product, you always see a food fraud in the air, on the horizon. Now there are platforms available known as Horizon Scan, where you can get instant information about any recalls or any food fraud incidents. So after a 5-month operation, Interpol and Europol seized more than 117 million US dollars worth of potentially dangerous fake food, including some 16,000 tons of food and 33 million liters of fake or altered drinks. Seafood fraud and mislabeling is a big issue globally. Seafood is a truly global commodity. A fish caught in one part of the globe might change hands dozens of times and undergo multiple forms of processing and packaging before reaching its ultimate destinations, or shall I say destinations, the meaning more than one, thousands of miles away. Seafood supply chains are often opaque and complex. So it's very rare that you can see any transparency. So this is one area where there's a lot of fraud happening, with mislabeling of fish, etc. So the consequences of mislabeling can be as serious as some species of fish that are used as substitutes can put consumers at risk of negative health impacts such as allergies, and intentional species substitution and mislabeling can be used to bring illegally caught fish to the market. Again, seafood traceability is increasingly becoming a focal point globally to address the entry of illegally and unethically produced products into the supply chain. Today, more and more experts view full supply chain traceability and full transparency as the only way to ensure against the continued entry of illegally or unethically produced seafood products into the seafood supply chain. One tool that can be used is DNA testing, which is a good way to confirm species claims for products and can be used as a verification spot check. So a lot of countries now use DNA testing. It's a very powerful technique, but these days you just want transparency and clarity. So illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing, known as IUU, is a global problem that results in estimated fishing loss of, say, 10 to 23.5 billion US dollars per year, representing 11 to 26 million tons of seafood. Human rights abuses such as forced labor and human trafficking have also received widespread attention in recent years, with reports linking seafood supply chains in 55 countries on 5 continents to forced labor. Now, fishing and seafood processing have been tied to human rights issues such as unsafe working conditions, physical abuse, little to no pay for workers, and also trafficking of fishes and children. So a lot of these fishing trawlers that you find in lesser developed countries have actually got child labor on board. Some of these children have never seen land, like I'm talking about countries like Thailand. They use children to actually help them on to fish, and these kids have never seen land, which is a shame. So their childhood is taken away from them. Now I will be moving forward and to another slide where I'll pass you over to Vasambal to talk a little bit more about this slide.
Thank you, Ajay. Thank you for this great introduction to food traceability, and we'll now move on to the challenges of food traceability. Actually, based on a report by the Global Food Traceability Center, there are 6 common encountered challenges that have been identified and faced when executing food traceability. So the first one is due to a continuous shift in consumer preferences. They are demanding instant access to reliable and relevant information about their products. So consumers are being very aware nowadays, and they want more flexible and reliable information to really understand what type of products they are consuming. The next challenge is the conflicting demands from local and international regulators due to high differences in regulations, such as on allergens, trace elements, pesticides or insecticides, ingredient list labeling issues, and others. Then there is a lack of unifying requirements, such as data can be difficult to analyze into relevant decision-making formats. Another issue that's been encountered when putting forward a food traceability system could also be due to the variation in traceability systems according to different products and industries. So a system from implemented into a dairy industry will be different from a fishery industry, for example. So let's explore a little bit how this is done industry-wise. In the first instance, in the farming, fishery, or agricultural industry, traceability begins with the birth of the livestock or the planting of the grains or seeds, which is then followed through the growth process, pesticide or insecticide use, the nutritional records of the animals, soil fertility in terms of agriculture and farming. Also, the animal's health is maintained and monitored, and information throughout transportation and distribution are also recorded. In regards to food manufacturers, identification starts at the very source of each ingredient and is followed through the supply chain of processing, packaging, distribution, and again, transportation. In another sector, such as retail and food service, traceability systems within such industry aims particularly at receiving invoices to identify the lot and batch information with regulations. So basically all the barcodes and information gathered through are being monitored within regulations. The fifth challenge that has been noticed and encountered through developing and implementing traceability system is the lack of record or missing records. The lack of data is due to the complexity in product development and the growing food systems globally. Hence, more complete traceability systems are required to be put in place, which are often costly, time-consuming, or even could be labor-intensive as well. So the issue here is written documentation could lead to human error, problems in sorting product quickly, and or slow traceback of products. The solution to this challenge is to move forward and towards electronic data management systems. Finally, the last issue that I'm going to talk about is weak technical systems that inhibit rapid response times. So the issue of weak technical systems present more often within small and mid-sized firms because operation between systems is often lacking. Overcoming these challenges is very essential to the successful use of traceability to maintain the safety of the food supply. So we ask ourselves a question, what is one potential solution to combat these issues? Well, I guess it's blockchain, but let's see what Dr. Ajay Shah has to say more about blockchain and traceability.
Thank you, Vasambal. Okay. What is blockchain? Okay, blockchain is often referred to as the next evolution of the internet, and the economists justifiably refer to it as the trust machine. Blockchain is simply an incorruptible distributed digital ledger of transactions which allows users to more effectively measure, record, and transact value. Blockchain, or distributed ledger as it's known, is a continuously growing digital list of encrypted transactions called blocks that are distributed. Basically when they say actually distributed, they're actually copied to a peer-to-peer network of computers known as P2P. The blockchain can be described as a technology that increases trust and transparency in a system by storing all transactions in a decentralized manner, and that is distributed and publicly available. Now, everyone in the system can check those transactions and verify their accuracy. Blockchain technology enables companies to record every event or transaction within a supply chain on a distributed ledger. Now, this particular ledger is shared among all participants, not owned by any, and actually records events and transactions in a secure manner and cannot be altered retroactively without the alterations of all subsequent blocks and the collusion of the network. So it is regarded as one of the digital technologies shaping the farms to table supply chain, and it is only just getting started. So, it's kind of warming up. So digital technologies are providing tools to improve traceability, trust, and ultimately shaping the food supply chain to withstand the predicted challenges of the future. Now, tracing contaminated food back to its source of a foodborne disease outbreak coordinates more effective recalls of food through to be contaminated and learn where past problems began quickly. So this technology will really be able to sort of give us all those answers very, very quickly. And in the wake of last year of a romaine lettuce E. coli scare back in US, there was an incident of E. coli that affected all the leafy vegetables, and the US retail giant Walmart decided it would deploy blockchain technology to track the supply of leafy greens. So suppliers are now expected to have all these systems in place by the end of this year. Again, these benefits have been propelling interest in blockchain related to technologies over the past year or so. So nowadays, a lot of companies are coming on board and wanting to invest in blockchain technology for traceability and transparency. So Walmart's blockchain solution is just one example of how new technologies are shaping industry transparency. Now, I'll pass you over to Vasambal, who will talk to you more about an example of a study using blockchain technology in sort of the Fiji area in the Pacific.
All right, thank you so much, Ajay. Okay, so initially Ajay mentioned the intensive sea fraud and mislabeling issues within the fish industry. And since the fish industry is a growing industry globally, it is worthwhile understanding and knowing what's happening within the traceability system to ensure that safe fisheries products are being distributed globally. So here we have this World Wild Fund for Nature Association, who engaged in a blockchain supply chain traceability project in the Fiji tuna fisheries, because apparently there is a lot of illegal fishing going around, and this project wanted to make sure that the next generation is benefiting from safe food supply. So WWF, a worldwide fund, partnered with Viant, which is a next generation blockchain-based platform for modeling business processes, tracking assets, and building the transparent, flexible supply chains of the future. Actually, Viant's platform consists of three main core components, which are the modeler, smart builder, and the tracker. Let's look firstly at modeler. The modeler allows a subject matter expert with no technical ability at all to log into the system and model a business process. In this tuna project specifically, they have chosen to track weight, unique RFID number, the species, the type of fish, the catch zone, the vessel used to catch the fish, the crew details, and catch details, including several other attributes as well. As for the second component, known as the smart builder, it is very simple. With the click of one button, the previously modeled business process and asset are deployed on the blockchain. The smart builder also holds the administrative functions, such as tying roles, users, and permissions to the asset and process. In the tuna scenario specifically, roles include the fisher, regulator, processor, and the consumer. The last core component, as I said, is the tracker. So basically, once the application has been built using Viant, customers, manufacturers, and producers can log into the application and create new assets. They can move assets along the defined workflow, and they can search assets as they are being tracked along every node of the supply chain. All right, let's dive further into what the pilot project was all about. Worldwide Fund joined an agreement with Viant. As one of the initial beta customers for Viant, pioneering testing in collaboration with Traceable Solutions and Sequest Fiji Limited. Okay, what is Sequest? Sequest is a small company comprised of 6 vessels, delivering to the vertically integrated processing facility, which then delivers fresh and frozen tuna products to well-defined high-value markets. Sequest, for their part, recognized the potential of blockchain to facilitate better product control, not only within their own operations, but also with respect to identification of end markets for their products in a way that could support better business decisions. On the other hand, Traceable Solutions was engaged to provide on-the-ground technical input to integrate Viant with Sequest's existing processes. So, supply chain mapping represents a key activity to ensure all the actors and processes are identified, and as it has implications to how the traceability data is maintained through the supply chain. Under the current project, a combination of RFID and QR codes were used to capture information throughout the supply chain. Indeed, if there is internet access on board the vessel, then the tagged fish data can be transmitted immediately and recorded as digital data. Eventually, at the end of a fishing trip and on return to the port, each piece of tagged fish is verified at landing and is then transferred to a processing facility. whereby the tag stays within the fish through the entire process to ensure the continuity of the fish traceability. So we have an idea of the journey of the fish from the catching point to the processing facility. The tag is then typically removed at the point of packaging and is swapped with a unique QR code that goes with the fish or product to the market. That's interesting. Each QR code is specific to the original RFID tag identity, making real-time mass balance reconciliation possible. In the end, once packaged, the fish products enter distribution channels to their destination markets. At this point, users can engage either the traceable or via apps on their phone or iPads to track the fish downstream to the retail outlets and finally to the consumer. At each step of the way, the system through its different supply chain act by simply scanning the QR code on the packaging and entering some key pieces of information, maintains and builds the story of the fish. That is interesting in maintaining safety and avoiding fish fraud within the fish industry. So I will now pass on to Ajay. Even though there is hope with blockchain and the traceability system incorporated with blockchain, there could be some challenges as well, which will be further elaborated by Ajay.
Thank you, Vasambal. I just wanted to sort of, sorry, I'll just go back to the other slide. I'll just continue about the challenges. Okay, I'll be talking about the challenges. What are the challenges? Okay, human error is one. So any information system is only as good as the quality of its data. Like any other system, blockchain faces the same challenges with the well-known problem of, for example, garbage in, garbage out. So if you do not put the right data in its place, it will carry through. So if there's an error initially, that error will carry through. So it's really, really important that the right, correct data is entered in the first place. So if it's not entered correctly, there's going to be errors all the way through. So that's one of the drawbacks of blockchain. Much of the longline fishery in the Pacific remains heavily reliant on paper-based processes in both government agencies like Fiji's Ministry of Fisheries and in fishing companies. For any kind of traceability to work well, it requires as much digitization of processes along the supply chain as possible. So in the big sort of modern countries, it's possible, but for the small, less developed countries, it's a long way away. So this technology is good, but it's a long way away. Some fishing companies will not know what happens to their products past their international buyers. Now, the good thing is blockchain offers is the ability to see what previous actors have recorded, and so it is possible to identify where the supply chain actors may have entered false data in the supply chain. As Vasambal mentioned, food fraud and market substitution are important for economic gain, is also a global challenge. So, you know, as I mentioned myself as well, that food fraud only happens when there is a gain. Fraud and malfeasance, or even simply honest error, is infinitely more detectable under a blockchain scenario. Now, global sourcing means that time zones play a significant role in response times. So with the fishing in particular, with you know, when you're crossing different zone times, the recording is a big issue. So that's where blockchain technology actually can falter. So traceability and visibility across the value chain is important, and sometimes you lose that. Fraud and provenance transparency is critical. So customers and watchdogs these days want to know where goods come from. Now, to finish off, I'll just pass you over to Vasambal to talk a little bit about food traceability in other countries.
All right. So far, we've touched quite a lot on the fish industry, but food traceability is also being implemented in other sectors, as proven by the Carrefour blockchain integration in the USA. Actually, by the end of 2018, Carrefour had planned to expand blockchain to food items like honey, eggs, milk, tomatoes, and salmon. Secondly, we have Swiss food companies Nestlé and British-Dutch Unilever have also participated in blockchain projects successfully to improve food supply chain transparency and sustainability. So what's next? Okay, as digital technologies gain mainstream interest, we will experience another year in which more innovators are likely to launch services that seek revolutionization within supply chain information sharing. Also, the fact that consumer scrutiny is on the rise, hence it will continue to drive transparency. Today's sophisticated consumers are more ethical, sustainable, and even more health conscious and aware than ever before. And they will therefore demand even greater, more detailed sustainability transparency in the years to come. So let's see what blockchain and all the other technologies bring forward to continuously maintain our food supply chain. And we thank Exemplar Global for this opportunity to participate again in second year round to this important event to actually continue raising awareness towards an improved food supply system. And we thank also the global listeners for your attention. Thank you so much.
And thank you, Ajay Shah, Dr. Ajay Shah, and Dr. Vasambal Manikkam for that important look at traceability within the food industry. And that concludes this presentation.